Welcome back to our discussion on Python data types. Previously, we went through a discussion on strings, and we also discussed numbers. And now we're getting into the fun part, and that's where we're going to discuss lists and tuples. So what is a list? Well, essentially, a list is a set of information all in one place. It can be millions of different items in the list or just a few. Essentially, it's a collection of items in a particular order. And you can put anything you want in a list. They don't even have to be necessarily related in any way, which is really great. So let's jump into our Jupyter Notebook and start playing with lists. So I'm going to jump over. I've kind of already set out an agenda for us with lists. And I will make this Jupyter Notebook available down in the description so you can download it as well. So let's take a look at lists. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a list. So to create a list, first let's think about what we want to create a list of. I really like cars, so maybe we could create a variable called cars, and we're going to create a list inside of it. So lists are enclosed with brackets and they're separated by commas. So let's just do car manufacturers. So maybe we choose Ford and Toyota, and let's throw in some Audi and BMW. All right, so we have a list of cars here, and they are strings. That's why they're enclosed in quotes. Again, you can use double or single quotes. I'm using single quotes for this example. Either way works. So if I go and I print out cars, you'll see that I get my list of cars. Great. By the way, Jupyter does allow you to do a little bit of a cheat. You don't actually have to run the print command. You can type cars and it will give you the actual list output. But to stay, that doesn't always work in every terminal, so I'm just going to stick to always using the print command. So just so you know that you can do that, but I'll be using the print command with that. All right, so we've created our list of cars. So how do we access a specific element in our list later that we need? So let's go here and let's discuss accessing elements. And to do that, we have to use the appropriate index in the list, okay? Don't worry, this isn't super difficult. Every element in our list is assigned an index number, starting with 0. I know this sounds confusing because here Ford will be 0, Toyota will be 1, Audi will be 2, and BMW will be 3. If you're familiar with programming languages, you're already familiar with this. It's not going to be a big deal. If you're not, then just know that in most programming languages, indexes always start at 0. And this has to do with lower end programming, and we're not going to go into all those specifics in this video. Just know that when you're looking at Python lists, the index always starts with 0. So index 0 is Ford, index 1 is Toyota, index 2 is Audi, and index 3 is BMW. So how do we pull out a specific element in our list? That's pretty easy. I'm going to use print, and I'm just going to do cars and the element number. The index number, so 0. If I print cars 0, it returns the string Ford. Great. What if I return cars at index 1? It returns Toyota. Awesome. Okay, it's great. It's working. What if I always want to get the last element in the list? Well, we know how to get the first element. It's always index 0. What about the last element? How do I always easily get whatever's the last element? I can just use -1. So if I print cars at -1, it will always return the last element in the list. And this will be helpful in some later lessons that we do. So totally possible. All right, so what if we want to modify an element in our list? So we want to change Ford to, I don't know, what should we change this to? Acura? Let's do that. We want to change Ford in our list to Acura. All right, all we need to do is we need to get cars at a specific index, in this case 0, because Ford is at 0, and we're going to assign it to something else. In this case, we will do Acura. So if I do that and then I print back out the cars list, you'll see that now Ford is gone. It used to be Ford, Toyota, Audi. Now it's Acura, Toyota, Audi. Great. So that's so modifying an element, very simple. Just modify it by its index number, and you're good to go. What about adding additional elements to a list? All right, this is also really easy. You can either append to a list or insert into a list. Append uses the append modifier, so cars.append and whatever you want to append to the list. Maybe this time we go big and we want to do more of a, let's do more of an exotic, maybe like a Bentley. So let's do a Bentley. We're gonna append Bentley to the list. So if I do that and then I print cars back out, you notice that Bentley was added to the last element in the list. So appending always adds it to the last element of the list, right? But what if I want to insert something into a particular location in the list? In this case, what if I want it to be at the very beginning? All right, well, let's comment this out so we don't affect that. Let's insert into the list. So we can do cars dot insert. We're going to give it the index number of where we wanted to insert the new value. So I'm going to say 0 for the very beginning. And then we are going to add a Maserati. Whoops, got to have that in quotes. A Maserati. All right, so we're going to add Maserati to the very beginning of our list. So if I print this back out and hit Control Enter, there we go. So we appended Bentley to the end, and we insert at location index 0 Maserati. Great. So adding elements, super, very, very easy in lists. Okay, how do we delete a method? Well, okay, so we have Maserati and we've got Bentley. They kind of don't belong with, you know, they're more higher end. So remember, we're gonna get them out of our list. So how do we do that? First thing we can do is use the delete method, which is del. And all we have to do is call cars at a specific index number, and it will delete the element at that index. In this case, we're going to delete cars index 0. We're going to get rid of Maserati. To show you that that works, I'm going to print back out the list, and you'll see that Maserati is now no longer in our list. All right, great, it worked. Let's look at another way to remove elements. We can remove elements using a pop method. I'm going to show you that in just a second, but let me show you how to also remove elements by value. So I also want to get rid of Bentley. Now I could come in here and say, okay, well, Bentley is at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I already know the value name, I can actually just do this. I can do cars dot remove and put the value name, whoops, not Bentley, that won't work. Bentley right as the argument for that method. If I hit Control Enter, well, let me print back out cars, sorry. Control Enter, Bentley is now gone, right? So we were able to remove a value using the value name rather than the index name. All right, so that's how that works. What about the pop method? Okay, the pop method is really cool because what it allows you to do is to pop an element out of the list and immediately use that element as a variable in your code, which is great. So let me give you an example. Maybe what I want to do is I want to pop out of the element the first car I've purchased, and the first car I've purchased is the Acura. It's the first car on my list. So what I can do is I can do cars.pop at index 0, but I'm also going to assign this to a variable called first purchase. Okay, I want to show you what happens here. If I then print cars right after that, so if I print cars and I also print my first car was, and I concatenate in my new variable of first purchase, watch what happens. All right, first and foremost, notice that Acura was removed from the list. Our cars list no longer has Acura in it. It's popped it out. And it's popped it out into the variable first purchase. So my first car was Acura. That's very cool because you're going to be using that later on in code where you need to simultaneously remove something from a list and then use it. And that's using the pop method. So very cool. All right, what about organizing a list? Okay, so our list currently consists of Toyota, Audi, and BMW. What if we need this in alphabetical order? Well, that's very easy to do. All we do is take our cars list and we use the sort method. So if I now print cars, after doing that, there we go. It turns from Toyota, Audi, BMW to Audi, BMW, Toyota. You can also include reverse true in the method. And doing so will do it in alphabetical order in reverse, right? And it does it permanently. So notice that the sort method is a permanent change to the list. So if you use the list anytime further down, it's a permanent change. Okay, so now we have Toyota, BMW, Audi. So let's put it in reverse. Well, what if we want to take what is now this new reverse ordered list that we've created? It's like that now permanently, but we want to temporarily put it back in alphabetical order. I know that sounds crazy, but what we can do is we can use the sort function. So sorted function. So we take sorted cars, and I need to print that out so you can see it. Okay, if I do that, it's taken, and I'm going to give you some perspective. I'm going to print the actual, this is what the actual list looks like now, and then we'll look at what the list looks like after it's temporarily changed. So we can see the actual list is Toyota, BMW, Audi, but we temporarily changed it to Audi, BMW, Toyota. To show you that, if I was to print the list again, cars, you'll see that it goes back to its actual permanent state. So to temporarily change the order, you can use sorted. All right. Now, lastly, the reverse method. What does the reverse method do? Well, let's take a quick look. So I'm going to comment these out, because the reverse method will take whatever the current state of the array is, and it will flip it around. It will reverse its order. All right, so it's going to take Toyota, BMW, Audi, and it's going to put it in reverse order of how it is now. So if I take and I do cars.reverse method, and this is a permanent change again. All right, let's comment this out. We did this. Let's print it. You'll see that we've now reversed it from Toyota, BMW, Audi to Audi, BMW, Toyota. So it doesn't care about if it's in alphabetical order or anything like that. It's just reversing the entire order of the items in the list. So that's what reverse does. All right. So what about finding the list length? This is easy. We just use the len function and type in the list name, and we can see that there are 3 elements in the list cars. There's Audi, BMW, and Toyota. Now you might be asking, well, don't you always start with 0, so shouldn't it be 2? Well, when it counts the actual amount of elements, it does start with 1. And that's a little confusing, but this will always give you, just know that this is going to return the total number of elements in your list. And this is really important, and you'll see this later, because if you wanted to, for example, see if a list is empty, you would maybe use an if statement that says, hey, if the length of cars is greater than 0, then we know it's not empty. Otherwise, it's empty, and do this. So we definitely will be using the finding the length of a list later on. All right. Lastly, what are tuples? Tuples are very similar to lists, except for that they are immutable, meaning that they cannot be modified. So why would you want to do this? Well, perhaps maybe you have a specific list that you want to make sure that downstream in your code does not accidentally get changed. You can use a tuple for that. There are other purposes for tuples as well that we're not going to be covering yet in this lesson. You'll see those at a later lesson. But just know at this point that tuples are lists that cannot be modified. So for example, maybe I have a variable called grades that I add in some grade values here. So someone got an 85, another person got a 76, someone failed and got a 65, and then someone else did really great and got a 98. So these are our grades, all right? So I'm gonna print them so you can see that they're very similar. All right, great, 85, 76, 65, and 78. Awesome. Now, what happens if I want to change 85 to 72? Well, with the list, we just do this. Grades at index 0 equals 72. Right? Well, watch what happens. Whoa, we get this error. It says, hey, listen, this type of tuple, it does not support item assignment. You can't modify this data type. So this essentially is the error that you would get if later on in your code you were trying to change elements in your list, and then you could stop and go, oh yeah, that's right. This is constant. I cannot change the values of this list. Thanks for saving me. So that's a good use case for tuples. Now keep in mind though, what you can do is completely reassign the variable. So there's nothing stopping me from having grades at 85, 76, 65, 98, and then having grades at 58, 62, 73. And if I print grades, grades is no longer this list, it's now this list. Okay, so it's more protecting the inside elements of the list is what a tuple is doing. So I hope that makes sense. In our next lesson, it's gonna start to get really fun. We're gonna start looking at for loops. So we're gonna start looking at looping. We're also gonna look at if-else statements, which are really powerful as well, and gonna have a great time there. If you'd like to download this Jupyter Notebook, it will be in the description below. And so get ready for our next lesson, and I'll see you there.